Hey, 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 hey. One, two.
You gotta put your past behind you. Look, kid. Bad things happen, and you can't do anything about it, right? Wrong! When the world turns its back on you, you turn your back on them.
That's not what I was told.
And maybe you need a new lesson. Repeat after me. Hakuna Matata. Hakuna Matata. It makes no worries. Repeat after me. Hakuna Matata. Hakuna Matata. It makes no worries.
Love that takes you higher, I will forever be intertwined with you. Where the sun never goes down and time will slow down. Would it be too crazy if we decided to stay forever? Decided to stay forever, forever. Stay forever. Stay, stay. Stay forever.
Test.
This one. Almost. Probably start like a few minutes, but just to get people.
Test. Test.
Does that work? You can hear it?
Test. Yeah. All right, we're going to get this going here. How's everybody doing tonight? For those of you who haven't met, I'm Ryan. I work really closely with the UXDX team to run these events out of New York. This is the eighth time we're doing it. So really excited to have you all here. I have a few slides, so let me just move around here a little bit. Okay, so first, this is UXDX Global Community Week. So tonight, Lisbon, we have Dublin, Washington, D.C. is going tonight. You're all in New York. So New York is going tonight. Washington, we have Istanbul is going tomorrow. I think there's something else going on next week. So it's really exciting to be a part of this one. UXDX also has bigger conferences every year. Prices get increasingly more expensive. So if anybody's looking for a discount, Community 20, that's it. Write it down, take a picture, Community and 20 because it's 20% off. That's how. Back at some point in December, at least like tentatively, want to do something in December, keep an eye out for an announcement, do something kind of a fun end of the year event. So keep an eye out. John Cena's watching you. And if anyone's ever interested in getting involved in speaking at any of the meetups, hit me up after, find me in between sessions. Definitely like to talk to you and figure out how we can make that happen. And I'm really excited about tonight. I think we have great content tonight. So tonight isn't about craft. It's not about design. It's not about programming. It's not about product. This is about showing up. It's about presence. It's about leadership. It's about what you should be thinking about as we're going into 2026. So these are the important things. Understand this stuff actually makes you better at craft. It makes you better at your job. So I'm really excited to get to talk about some of this tonight. One thing that I want to do before we kick this off, and by the way, we're live streaming. This is the first time we've live streamed one of these events, so this is going to kind of be weird for the people who are on the webinar. But just want to take a minute here where find somebody you don't know, who you've never talked to before. Don't cheat. So don't turn to a colleague. Find somebody you don't know, and 1 minute, find out who that person is, where they're from, where they work. We're going to get going in 3, 2, 1. Go to it. Come on. Talk to somebody. You guys are in it too. You guys have been talking. You're cheating. All right, come on, jump in there. Participate. Be participators. Jump in there with other people.
Yes, the last one you just start talking.
Oh, right. Yes.
Together.
All right, networking game is over. All right, listen up. You're late to the game. All right. All right, we're gonna get going here with the content. Hope you'll have more chance to talk and get to know each other at the end. Find somebody else who you haven't met. But I do want to ask, who here has cheated? Who cheated? Who talked to somebody that they already know? Right, show of hands. No cheaters. All right. Good job then. You'll have more time to do it, but that's one of the important things about these events, are talking to people that you don't know, right? Networking is a big part of this. That being said, I want to introduce Lorraine. We're gonna kick this off. You want to grab a seat? All right, so I'm really excited to have this conversation about presence and about showing up. For those of you who don't know Lorraine, yourself to
Hey, I'm Lorraine, normally based in San Francisco, but here in New York for the week. And I spent the first decade of my career leading editorial teams at various tech companies. So I was a founding editor at LinkedIn and a founding editor at a company called Prezi, which some of you may be familiar with, as designers. And it was at the end of 2022 that I got impacted by the tech layoffs. And so had to decide, did I want to start my own company or apply for another job? And I founded my company, Rise Learning Solutions, where I am a keynote speaker. I teach courses through LinkedIn Learning, also at Stanford. My book, Unforgettable Presence, came out at the end of April. And I also am a content creator on LinkedIn. And Ryan and I met through LinkedIn. You reached out, to interview me for your podcast. And just very excited to be here with all of you today.
So I'm gonna pass the mic back and forth here. So Lorraine, you've built a great reputation around presence. So what sparked your focus in that space, and what led you to write your book?
The impetus for the book really started way back during my time at LinkedIn, where I was someone who worked really hard. I worked on high visibility projects. I was well liked by my peers, showed up with a positive attitude, and I was there for 6 years. And so on paper, by all accounts, those qualities I would think would lead to a promotion. But as hard as I tried and pushed for it and, kept working even harder, it just didn't happen for me, unfortunately. And it wasn't until I left LinkedIn that I had that space to think about, okay, what could I have done differently? What went wrong? And I was able to talk to mentors and peers. And I realized that a lot of it really came down to presence in terms of how others saw me. And then I joined Prezi soon after. And then a few months later, it was COVID. And then I realized, oh, presence is not just about how others see me. It's also about where others see me, because now we have a video presence. LinkedIn presence has become even more important. And we technically have presence in so many different touch points that we have in a day. So in a Slack message, in email, the way that we lead meetings. And so I really wanted to redefine how we think about presence, because it's not just I'm at a certain level executive presence, but it's really about intentionality, about the smaller and more frequent moments where we show up in our day-to-day. And so Wiley approached me through LinkedIn. A book was something that I was excited to do, but not necessarily on my vision board initially. And then when they came to me, all these ideas flowed out, and I was like, okay, this is the idea, and I think this is the right time.
Honestly, we will jump more into the book. I don't know if this is working. Do you all hear me? We will get back more into the book, but things change fast, right? So how have you seen expectations around presence change over the years?
So when we hear the word presence, a lot of us probably think about executive presence. Executive presence and presence more generally, like I touched on a few of the points, right? We have a virtual presence, and presence is really about all the smaller touch points in a day. Executive presence in particular, we've seen some really interesting research that shows how it's transformed from 2012 to 2022. So there was some really interesting research in Harvard Business Review that showed that typical traits across gravitas, communication, and appearance have shifted dramatically. So whereas traits like physical attractiveness, forcefulness, a sense of humor, or what people perceived as executive presence in 2012, it's now been replaced by things like authenticity, being able to command a Zoom room, listening to learn orientation, right? So much more people-centric and human first skills, I would say. So I'm happy about that transformation. I think it's only good for women, for introverts, for people who maybe don't fit that stereotypical mold of like the loud, kind of brash executive.
Right. And one thing that you mentioned in your book, meetings, LinkedIn are kind of the low-hanging fruit.
Exactly. Yeah.
So maybe we could dive into each of them.
Sure. Yeah.
Start with LinkedIn, and then we'll move on to meetings.
Okay, yeah. LinkedIn requires a little bit of a mindset shift. So I think a lot of people still think about LinkedIn as a place to find a job. And so you're not going to be active on it unless you're looking for a job. But LinkedIn has really transformed. I was part of the team that brought content to the platform, right? So it's really evolved a lot over the past few years, but it's become our virtual water cooler, our virtual landing page, and really our ultimate virtual office. And so we want to be seen at the office, right? The ultimate virtual office. So I think that mindset shift is really important to begin with. And then as you start building your presence on LinkedIn, I mean, just so many things can come from it, right? You're staying top of mind. Even if you're happy at your current job, like you putting yourself out there because it's hard to do, you're seen as more of a leader internally. I know that happened to me. I found more confidence. I found more of my voice through posting and writing regularly on LinkedIn. I also brought that into my company. You get to meet amazing people who you wouldn't have otherwise met, right? You added me on LinkedIn. I was like, who is this guy? I'm like going on your profile and looking, and I'm like, okay, he looks legit. And then we got to talking, and we got to, do the podcast and do this right now. So very powerful.
So what would you say to somebody who has thought about starting to get involved with LinkedIn, but they don't really know what to do or what to talk about?
The first thing I would say is to remove some pressure from yourself. Well, actually, I'd be curious from the audience. So give me a thumbs up if you post somewhat regularly or post things other than I got a new job or I got this award, and then give me a thumbs down if you're not really posting, which is fine, no judgment. Okay, I think it's like mostly thumbs down in this group. So yeah, so if you're nervous about posting or just haven't thought about it, the first thing I would say is don't put so much pressure on yourself. When I talk to groups, a lot of times people have an idea or they think they know what they want to post, but they psych themselves out thinking, oh my gosh, it has to be the smartest thing or the most original thought. Honestly, I don't think anything is really that original on LinkedIn. It's about how people are framing it. It's about your challenges and your experiences and who you are that makes someone want to listen to you and want to learn from you. So that's the first mindset shift, I would say. And then I talk about 3 categories. So I have a whole chapter on LinkedIn in the book, 3 categories of topics that you can write about or post about: personal, educational, professional. So I think having those buckets in mind can be really helpful. So educational is usually where people start first. It's, I think, the easiest, right? You're teaching someone something that you know. Professional, maybe something's happening in the design community, something in the news, something about your company. And then personal, a little bit harder, but that's where people really connect with you, get to know you as a person. You're sharing your challenges, your life stories, your experiences.
Awesome. And let's quickly touch on meetings. Then
Sure.
we'll move on. So what should somebody understand about meetings and why they're so powerful
Mm-hmm.
in growing your presence?
Most meetings are really, really bad. We all know that, right? And so if the bar for meetings is so low, if you just do a little bit more, I see some head nods, a little bit more than the status quo, I mean, people are going to be so impressed. So I always talk about it as really low hanging fruit. With meetings, there's a number of things that are very easy to implement that have big impact. So number one, I have to say the agenda, and not just the agenda very vaguely, but the agenda in terms of these are the 3 topics we're going to talk about in a 25-minute meeting. We're going to spend 3 minutes on the first thing, 7 minutes on the next thing. I can't do math, but whatever the rest of the time is on the third thing. And then within those, here's who needs to speak and here's who we need information from. And so being really specific, and then of course having a goal. By the end of this meeting, it will be a success if. That statement can feel a little awkward at first saying it, but it really gets people aligned and understanding what you're supposed to be doing. So the agenda is key. And then remembering, if you're facilitating a meeting, to think of yourself a little bit as a workplace entertainer. It's not enough to get on a call and just have it be quiet or have that, small talk. How's the weather? You're setting the tone for the meeting right off the bat. So for a team meeting, maybe a question of the week, maybe a team Spotify playlist. What else can you do? Asking people to write down ideas, right? So a lot of ways to set the tone that you want them engaged from the start.
So one thing that you're making me think of in your book, you talk about
Mhm.
conversation running.
Yes.
Sometimes you're on meetings at the beginning, it's people sitting around.
Mhm.
Inevitably, you talk about the weather. That only goes
Yep.
so long.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about conversation threading and
Yeah.
how people think about that?
Sure. So I talk a lot about autopilot small talk in my book and how you can use conversational threading to counteract that. So a lot of us don't like small talk, and that's because we're doing it on autopilot. So if we were walking to the office and I say, hey, Ryan, how's it going? And you say, good. And you say, how's it going? I say, good. And end of conversation, right? As it doesn't give us much to work with. So if I can predict his answer, that's not a good question. Instead, I might ask, Ryan, what was the highlight of your weekend? Instead of how was your weekend? And now you have to think back and think, okay, what did I do this weekend? Now you tell me an activity you did. Now we're going back and forth and there's conversation. And so conversational threading is, as the question asker, asking questions that will elicit threads. And then you as the question answerer, you also want to give more information besides one-word responses. And that allows us to build rapport, because small talk is one of the best ways to build relationships at work when you're doing it the right way.
Awesome. Okay, so now you're in the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing you talk about is what, so what, and now what is a framework to help tell us. Can you talk a little bit about how that works?
Mm-hmm. The what, so what, now what framework is one of the many frameworks and acronyms in the book, but one of the frameworks that is really helpful in impromptu speaking situations. We've all been in those meetings where an executive asks us or our manager asks us, what's the latest or what's the update? And if you're put on the spot, if you're introverted like me, if you get nervous, having frameworks is actually the best way to speak confidently on the fly. I used to think there were just people who are naturally born with this gift. I'm like, how do they just know how to answer that question right away? I need like, an hour to think about that. But when you have a framework like what, so what, now what, or past, present, future, you can have that framework in your mind and then answer in a clear, concise way that doesn't lead to rambling.
And there's building up to actually going through that. I
Yeah.
think a lot of the time people have something to say on the meetings, but maybe they're shy or they're not sure if they're saying the right thing. They don't quite, want to speak up. So could you talk a little bit about how you advise people just to get that courage, or knowing that it's okay to share what's on their mind?
Definitely. So I also talk about rules of engagement in the book. So if you are a meeting facilitator, being really explicit about how you want people to participate is key. Again, I'm an introvert, so whenever I lead a meeting, I'm going to be very explicit, use a chat. I'm going to be revisiting the chat and making sure that you feel seen. You might do an exercise at the beginning instead of brainstorming, brain writing, which is everyone writing down ideas on their own in silence for a few minutes. So there's a lot of things as a facilitator that can be really helpful and show that you are trying to get everyone's voice and not just listening to the loudest voice. Now, if you are a little bit quieter, maybe you're remote and your colleagues are in person, finding what I call an extroverted buddy can be kind of fun and helpful as well, where you let them know like, oh, can you like jump in here and then let me know or give me an opening to speak. So that can be good. And then again, getting the agenda ahead of time, letting the facilitator know, oh, hey, I think I'm going to have something to add here, or I have something that I want to say. Can you call on me during that time?
One thing I also think is interesting, talking about introverts, I think we talked about this the first time.
Yeah. You're an introvert, right?
I mean,
Ish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, like doing events and stuff like that, it's effort.
Yeah.
I would definitely say yes. And I think, one thing that we talked about early on is like introverts, when you're an introvert, I think of it like I have a lot of weaknesses or, kind of like these shadows, and they prevent me from doing things. And you kind of started talking about, well, there's also a lot of strengths that an introvert has. It's important to lean into this. So you talk about some of the strengths.
Of course. So actually, I'm going to ask the group, give me a thumbs up if you consider yourself to be an extrovert. I will not ask the introverts to raise their hands. Okay, yeah, so it's like 5 of you. So most of you are either, introverts or ambiverts. So to your point, like I used to feel that way too, where, gosh, it just felt like people just knew how to speak up in the meetings and everyone was just, collaborating just so quickly and thinking so fast. And I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, am I not as smart as others in the room? And it wasn't until I realized, one, I'm an introvert, and then realized how introverts really thrive, that I was able to lean into those superpowers and lean into those strengths. So as an example, yes, I might not be someone who will speak up super quickly on a meeting, but I'm a strong writer and I'm going to connect the dots and figure out like where the loose ends are and keep everyone on track when everyone's just chatting away and the meeting is unfocused. That's a strength. Public speaking is a strength, a little bit, counterintuitive, but plan public speaking scenarios where we are super thoughtful. We plan, we prepare, we want to understand and make sure we're doing a good job for our audience. All traits important for introverts. Building those one-on-one relationships, even more important now, right? In the age of AI, huge introvert strength. So understanding those superpowers and not trying to be an extrovert or act a certain way that doesn't feel natural is just going to take you much farther. And if you try to be someone else, it eventually leads to burnout. It's exhausting at the end of the day.
Yes. And kind of circling back when you started talking about building a brand and a career brand, one thing that you touch on is the EPIC framework. Could you share a little bit about what that is and maybe an example?
Sure. Yeah. So in the book, chapter 1, I talk about this concept of a career brand. A career brand is essentially a personal brand, which is essentially your reputation. But I call it a career brand because sometimes the phrase personal brand can feel a little bit icky to people, or they don't understand why they need it. They're like, a brand, like that's for a company, right? A career brand explains what your brand is in service of. It's there to help you with your career. And if we know that a career brand is our reputation, well, we all have a career brand, don't we? So we can either be intentional about it or let others define it for us. Now, that example that I shared, that story about me at LinkedIn, gosh, I wish I knew about this concept because, again, hardworking, executes well, well liked, all really nice, positive things. But for a senior leader, and I was trying to get that promotion, probably strategic, cross-functional partner, great cross-functional partner, visionary, like these are the words that you want to be associated with. And so when you can start understanding your brand, where you are now, where you want to be, that's where the growth happens. That's where you can take some actionable steps. You mentioned my epic career brand framework: experiences, personality, identity, community, the 4 key criteria to develop your brand. So experiences, your personal, professional life experiences that got you to where you are today. We all have different ones, right? Personality, what can people expect? Are you more introverted, extroverted? Are you serious? Are you the team culture champion? What personality do you bring? What can people expect when they work with you? Identity, this can be things like your cultural background. It can be the values that you operate by, right, in a working environment. So for example, relationships, super important to me. I always want to follow through on my word. And then the last piece, community. This is where a lot of people miss the mark. And I like you had the community code earlier, where a lot of us, we have a vision of our brand, but if our community and our network does not see us in that same way, well, then that's an important disconnect to know about. If they're not saying our name when we're not in the room, that's also an issue, right? We want people to know about us, to talk about us, and for it to be aligned with the way that we want to be seen.
Awesome. And I'm going to ask you one more question. I know
Sure.
the questions here, but I feel like if I don't ask you a question that involves AI, then
Yeah.
But how do you see presence changing in this new world of AI?
Yeah, I feel like this is always a closing question every time I do one of these. So presence is going to be even more critical in the age of AI because it is the people-centric skills, the soft skills, and your presence can be enhanced with AI, right? So we have tools that help us with our communication to find ways to collaborate better, but ultimately it's human to human work, right? And that's where presence comes in. So even more important, and AI will be a good helper.
Yeah, so I know you got some. After everyone finishes tonight, we're going to have everyone together for questions. Lorraine has to head out before we get there, so I just wanted to give all of you a chance. Does anyone have any questions for Lorraine? I could run around with the mic, and I think we have 3 minutes to it.
Sure. Sure. LinkedIn is still good for more personal information and personal stories, but to your point, we have to use our professional judgment. It is a professional platform. So there are certainly people who are oversharing, who shouldn't be sharing certain things, right, about their lives. But, I think all of you are, I'm sure you're at this event, you're very smart. You'll be able to find that line, right? Like it's important to show up as our true selves, but we don't need to show up as our whole selves. We all have different aspects to our personality. We have a professional self. So making sure that you are posting with that lens is the way to go. Yes. Oh, what's so what now what? Mm-hmm. So you only have to know what the framework is. So what is the situation? So what does that mean? Now, what does that mean? Past, present, future is great for updates. Where did we leave off? What's going on now? What's next? And so the whole point is that you don't necessarily have time to prepare, right? So with that framework, it gives you a roadmap, I guess, for how to answer the question. And so you just have it in your head and then you follow along the 3 steps. Thank you. I can hear you, but I don't think the mic is working. Yeah. Cool. Great. Yay. Welcome. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. And you're sort of referencing like on LinkedIn, there's some people who are just kind of there to be there. Yeah. So I'll talk about LinkedIn first. I think that part that we talked about earlier about that human element, sharing more of your story, is important. Because to your point, there's a lot of AI content out there now. I do think it's good though for the people who actually take time to create quality content, because the good content is going to rise to the top. And I think a lot of us can tell when something is written purely by AI, right? So I think from a LinkedIn perspective, I know people get nervous. Oh my gosh, there's so much more competition. I actually think it's good news for the people who are caring to write and take the time. And also, to your point, we want to make sure that we're posting not just a post, but because we have something important to say. So there's a balance there, right, between staying top of mind and then also making sure that you're getting your voice out there. In terms of internally, it is really important to be visible. I know it's, for people who like to do the work and think they should be rewarded by the hard work. Unfortunately, it's a reality of the way that corporate America is run. However, there are ways to be visible in such a way that doesn't feel like you're bragging or being inauthentic to yourself. So there are strategies in the book around that. I'll just share one right here. More data in the Harvard Business Review that showed that when we use more collaborative language like we, us, our, we're seen as more of leaders versus people who are using I statements actually are seen as more junior. So I think that's good news for all of us who maybe don't like the spotlight as much. Oh, we can be seen as a leader because we're lifting up everyone around us. So it is important though to know how the game works, and you do have to talk about your work. So yeah, thank you for that question. Okay, great. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. 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 Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. One thing that's really helpful that I also talked about in the book is finding someone to just like show your post to. It's such like a confidence booster to have someone look at it and just sometimes be that gut check, right? And just to say, yeah, that's totally fine. Or maybe we're overthinking it and we're thinking it's going to be like a bigger thing than it is. One thing I would suggest for you is to try commenting a little bit more. Commenting is lower stakes, but still creating content. You're going to grow your following that way. You're going to find your voice, build your thought leadership. So if you can find posts by other people who are talking about similar topics, kind of ease into it, comment, see what the reactions are, see if there's, some healthy debate. I think that can also be kind of like wading into the pool a little bit and seeing how others respond and see how you feel talking about that content in a more public way. But it's a little bit less public than I'm making the full post, on my own. Yeah. Yeah, so the book is sold anywhere that you can find books, so Amazon, Barnes and Noble, maybe even Penn Station. I think you might be able to find me there. Yeah, so I'd love to connect with all of you. Also building up my Instagram accounts. We'll take any design feedback from all of you here. And then LorraineKaylee.com/career will give you some additional free resources that you can check out. Thank you, everyone. This is great.
It's in the deck. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me loud and clear and authoritative? Can you hear every word I'm saying? All right, good. What's that? Excellent. So I think this is a really good connection, I hope, but I'm going to talk about building on some of the things that Lillian mentioned. We're going to go a little deeper here, guys, so I hope that's okay. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me to talk about something that's really near and dear to my heart, which is the subject of presence. And we've already started to talk about that. We're going to go, like I said, a little deeper. So specifically, how inner critical voices or imposter voices can really sap your attention and erode your confidence, and to give you hopefully a couple of tools to work against that as you're trying to build your presence. There will be a tiny amount of audience participation, so get yourself psyched for that. So first, a little bit about me. I've been fortunate to have a pretty long and diverse, which is another way of saying kind of twisty, turny, unpredictable career in technology, mostly as a founder, product leader, corporate executive. This has given me lots of opportunities, as you can imagine, to confront challenges of inner critical voices, both in myself and in the people I work with or I've managed. So that's why it's a topic that I've been thinking about for a really long time. I also want to mention, it's just sort of relevant to the UXDX mission, is that I was president for a couple of years of the IXDA, and I see some IXDA folks here, some friends, yeah. Long may it rain. So I really appreciate that we're still out here doing this as a community, because it's an essential thing to keep these professions together and talking to each other. So today I'm a full-time executive coach. And I was trained in a framework called the Coactive Framework, which is a specific methodology around coaching. And I've also completed coach certification with the International Coaching Federation. So I'm out there doing it, guys. And in my practice as a coach, one of the things I specialize in is helping people achieve their goals by managing and overcoming self-doubt, challenges. Here. So let's start with a question. Who here, show of hands, sometimes hears voices in their head? Okay, that's a lot. That's almost everybody. Good. Well, it so happens that about 96% of adults report having an ongoing inner dialogue. So this is a very, very common experience. Virtually all of us experience some form of inner voice. Sometimes it's multiple voices, an actual dialogue, like two voices fighting, like this image of like the angel and the devil on the shoulder, right? That's a common trope. But just for fun, I know you all said that you have this experience, but just for fun, let's see if we can turn these voices on right here and then pay attention to what it's like when they intrude, okay? So turn to someone next to you and look them straight in the eye and hold that eye contact for 20 seconds. All right, I'm gonna count in my head. All right. Okay, that's 20 seconds. That's 20 seconds. It took us a minute. It took us a minute to get rolling there, but you get the idea. See, now I've lost the audience. It's all off the rails now. Thank you. So, but actually it proves the point. It proves the point really well, because even before you got to the moment where you had somebody and you were looking in their eyes, you were kind of like, huh, am I going to do this right? Oh, no, I got to find you. I got to find, no. Well, no, it's not really happening. So, but then I think if some of you were able to get to that point where you were just sort of quietly looking at someone else in that moment, this like, am I being judged? What did I wear the right thing? I should have fixed my hair? Or maybe you're judging. Maybe you're thinking, wow, this guy, why is he looking at me that way? That's really weird, right? And so the point is that that's the inner voice at work. And in this little experiment, what's going on is it's being activated essentially by something that it perceives to be risky in some way, right? It's embarrassing, I'm ashamed, whatever. Obviously not that high stakes, but it's just an example. So as you can imagine, the work required to deal with that voice while it's happening takes a lot of energy away. What if you were trying to get to know this person? What if you were interviewing with them, right? What if you're interviewing them? I mean, all kinds of scenarios, right? You're trying to relate, you're trying to be there, but this voice is bothering you and it's stealing your energy. So that's really what we're dealing with here. And there are a lot of moments where it's very important for you to be present. You can't really afford to have that distraction. So what do we actually mean when we say presence? It's a kind of like a woo-woo word in a way. I mean, certainly what Lillian was talking about is a very important and very kind of tactical part of presence. Like, how do you present to others? Presence in the way that I'm talking about is maybe a little softer, a little more abstract, a little more internal. So, but it's an incredibly powerful foundation for leadership and impact in general, for relating to other people successfully. You might not use the word presence that routinely, but I'm pretty sure that you've noticed it in someone else. When you're with someone who's present, you don't know what name to put on it exactly, but you can just tell that they're really paying attention, they're really listening, and they really seem to care about the interaction with you or what's going on in the room. The quality of the connection with others. It means being there in a way that other people notice. And once you've established that foundation, there's all kinds of stuff you can do after that. So presence is communicated, as Lillian was talking about, through all kinds of habits and practices, right? Language, body language, et cetera. But it's also about being grounded and focused internally. I sort of feel like you almost can't get to any of that unless you're sort of still in yourself and you can quiet those voices. So in that sense, the greatest threat to your ability to be present is anything that harms that focus, like noisy voices inside. Here's an example of how you can tell when presence really slips. So in my coaching practice, I coach a lot of senior leaders who are interviewing for new jobs, sometimes very high stakes, very senior roles. And we run interview practice, right? Tell your story, answer a question that you anticipate, et cetera. And the curse of remote work is that your whole face is right there in that screen. So if you're like looking somewhere else, or the nuances of your facial expressions are very obvious, especially if it's one-on-one. And so you can see it in real time. They'll start out kind of answering a question smoothly, they're engaged, they're confident, and then all of a sudden they look down, they look to the side, and you can almost see that there's an inner voice that just perked up and said, oh, you don't have a good answer for this. Or, yeah, they're not really buying that you're qualified, right? Even in practice, this can show up. And it's a great opportunity for coaching, of course, because I can say, oh, that thing that you did right now, just don't do that, because it severs that connection with the other person. In that instant, their attention shifts from what's going on to the conversation into themselves. And it's a clear illustration of how presence can be hijacked by those voices. A coaching client of mine once described this as a running commentary in their head. So you're trying to pay attention in the room, but there's this other thing inside you that's like observing, judging, worrying. And for some reason, these voices, they seem to never be positive and supportive. They're always critical, right? They say things like, you don't belong. They think your ideas aren't good. You're not safe here, right? And so imposter syndrome, right, which is a word that we throw around a lot, and a lot of us feel like we have it, at least in my definition of it, is the state of being especially susceptible to those voices. Like they're very loud, or you tend to pay attention to them. You're distracted or diminished by them, particularly voices that question your credibility, your suitability, your experience, etc. Right? So that can be incredibly distracting, and it pulls you away from being where you are, present in the moment, and into a kind of argument or negotiation with those voices, which is a little crazy making. So let's think about where these voices actually come from. Why are they here in the first place? I think it's fairly common sense, and it helps to understand the origins. There are very, very deep roots, which is why they're so powerful. And there are three sources that really shape them and really are the origin of the voices: survival instincts, social structures, and community and communication, and individual experiences that we each have. Together, these three sources kind of conspire to scan the environment for danger. That's what they've been taught to do. So starting with survival, I mean, this is basic natural selection, right? Thousands of years ago, if you heard a rustle in the bushes, you know, it could very well be a predator that's going to jump out and kill you, right? And so the guy who was like, oh shit, what was that rustle? I better get out of here, ran away and survived to pass their DNA on. And maybe we have a little bit of that guy's DNA still. Whereas the one who failed to notice and just said, yeah, it's probably nothing, got eaten, most likely, and did not pass their DNA on. And so over time, you know, we've learned as a species that being a little alert to danger signals will keep us alive. And the same instinct gets activated today, even though I think I would argue that the danger is not quite as severe as it was back then. And then once we started living in groups, in communities, the notion of survival kind of shifted, right? We needed to rely on each other intensely for our own survival. And if we were going to survive and thrive, we needed to be accepted and continue to belong in a community. And so the idea of being rejected or excluded from a community is just as scary as being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, right? And so what we learned is to pick up interpersonal cues, context, pay close attention to facial expressions, body language, how people are relating to us as potential signs that we might not be safe. And the people who were better at doing that, again, survived, passed on their DNA, and here we are today. And then a little bit more personal, right? Each of us has our own experience. And in our upbringing, we kind of bring our own new voices, right? There are characters that we encounter that have incredible influence over us, and that influence gets cemented in our memory, right? Parents, teachers, early bosses, they want to help us and guide us, but they do that sometimes a little forcefully or maybe from a place of anxiety, right? And so that those pressures get internalized as new voices, and they echo with that authority that person had for us, right? I'm sure you all have experienced this. Like there's this feeling that you have that it's just connected to something, you know, your first boss always said, or a teacher said to you, you're no good at whatever, right? I mean, like, probably not true anymore, but you still hear that. And so those voices kind of bolt on to the survival ones and the community ones, and they form a great trifecta of concerned voices trying to keep us safe. So understanding these origins, it's easier to see how these voices work. It's important to recognize that they mean well, right? This is not like a gremlin, a demon trying to hurt you and disrupt you. They're trying to protect you, but just from something that is maybe not actually really there anymore. And so because the stakes feel really high, they feel incredibly urgent, and they feel like the truth. And that's because evolutionarily speaking, they are designed to be believed. If you don't believe them, then you don't listen to them and you don't survive. And so that's how they've been coded inside of you. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this problem in the first place. We wouldn't even be talking about it. But because they're innate or learned responses to dangers that don't really exist anymore, their warnings are not accurate. That's something we have to keep in mind. As I said, all of this inner debate has a cost. Your attention is being spent on evaluating or addressing perceived dangers. So you might not be fully present and alert to what's happening in the room, and you pay attention to the wrong things. Even worse, you might show up as irritated, distracted, anxious, because you're sitting there like churning about this issue, and you're not really paying attention. You seem annoyed, and people might recognize that, or you're guarded. So a little personal vulnerability now. So I want to introduce you to my most powerful and disruptive inner voice, who I've named the hustler. We'll get back to the naming piece. The hustler believes that all other people are rooting for me to fail, or that they want to undermine me in some way for their own purposes and their own goals. He says, that guy wants your job. You're threatening him. They're testing you. They're waiting for you to slip. And he wants me to pay the most attention to how I can strategize or scheme to compete or conquer other people because that's what they want to do to me. There were times when the hustler's voice dominated my attention, and it made it really difficult for me to lead and show up the way I wanted to, until I recognized it and started to deal with it, and I learned to use some of the tools that I'm going to mention right now. So how can you calm the voices? You know they're ancient. You now know they're automatic and very, very human. First of all, don't beat yourself up. Don't criticize yourself, make it worse for feeling these imposter feelings. Remember that this is your instinct for self-preservation. This is you being strong. It's your strength in action. So celebrate that. But the next step is to make sure that those voices don't distract you and stop you from showing up the way you want to, so that you can reclaim the presence that you really want to embody. There's a lot you can do to manage the inner voices. You do not need to be at their mercy, absolutely. And by the way, the first step is recognition and acknowledgement that these voices exist and what they are, and what they're trying to do. So you've already taken the first step by being here and listening to this talk. And now there are additional tools that you can use when that inner voice gets really loud. Name it, reason with it, interrupt it, and don't help it. So first, naming the voice. Giving your inner voice a name or a character is a really powerful shift. It sounds a little silly, the hustler, right? Who does your voice sound like? Maybe it's a family member or some fictional character or like a cartoon villain. You can be whimsical about it. Pick someone who's like a shorthand, like just saying their name, and you know instantly what they represent, the attitude, the concerns, the anxieties. The act of naming the voice externalizes it and separates it from the you that wants to be present and that's trying to determine what to pay attention to. And when you make that space, you can notice it and you don't have to obey it. So that separation is the first step. Name it. Start thinking about what name you want to give your critical inner voice. You can also reason with the voice. It is not all powerful or all knowing. You can question the truth of what it's telling you. So the voices sound very certain. Remember that they're designed to be believed. That's their specialty. But you can pause and ask for evidence. You can look at what's really true about the situation versus what you're afraid might be true, or what your voice is telling you might be true. And most of the time, you have to take my word for it, but it's really true. Most of the time, you find that you're more prepared, more capable, more supported, and in a better position than you thought, or that the voice wants you to think. And even if not, that the consequences are rarely as dire and serious as the severity of the voice would have you believe. So get into that debate if you can. If the critic is intruding in the middle of your work, like if it came in right now, like as I'm standing in front of you, right? I can't afford to be like, well, hang on, no, I know some people out there, they're friends, they'll be good, they're nice, they're not judging me. And you don't have time to debate, you can just shut it up. And what I like to use is not now. And I'm saying, I say this out loud, not now, I push it away, not now, I will deal with you later. So it's almost like you're talking to another being, another person who's hassling you when you're trying to do something. Now, I like not now. You can use whatever words you want. And by the way, profanity is allowed, right? Whatever feels like a strong way of pushing that voice away. If you can say it out loud, I think that really helps. If you can use your body, I think that helps even more. You might need to like step out of a meeting and like go into the hall and do a little, stop. If that's not possible, and it might not be possible in a lot of situations, what I suggest is just kind of like bring your attention to your breath, take 3 quiet breaths, and you can even just mouth the words to yourself. Just bring your attention somewhere else, make space that crowds out that voice. And finally, and actually Lillian made some great suggestions about this, don't do the voice's work for it. What I mean by that is you might be used to the critical message, and so you've internalized it, and unintentionally you echo it in your own speech patterns. And this is something that you might need someone else to like tell you that you're doing, notice for you and point it out. But you might say things like, this might be a dumb idea, I don't know, or I just got here, I don't really know, I know I'm new, or I'm not an expert, right? All of that kind of diminishing language. One coaching client of mine says they struggle with always saying just. Well, I was just asking, I was just thinking, I just wanted to know, I'm just telling you. And you can see how that instantly makes the speaker smaller, right? So don't do that. You don't have to do it. Give yourself permission starting tonight to stop doing that. You're not doing anybody any favors, and you're only hurting yourself. You're feeding that voice. So catch yourself and replace the words with things like, here's my idea. Or my perspective is this. I think we should do this. And you don't have to be a jerk about it, but just remove that diminishing instinct. And that way you're not cooperating with the critic. You're not making their job easier, and you can see yourself and hear yourself being stronger. And that makes the voices weaker. So the best news of all, to that last point, is that the more you use these tools, the more you move your attention away from what the voices are telling you, the more presence you'll naturally develop. And then reinforcing your presence creates evidence that the critic cannot deny. So being present, you can see more clearly that your voice and your ideas are being received and supported. People are nodding, they're laughing, they're writing stuff down when you talk. Whatever the case may be, you feel more solid and confident, and this weakens the voices and makes them less persuasive. They may pop up and you're like, no, that's not happening right now. And so like so many powerful habits, the more you kind of build your own presence, the better you can resist the pull of negative thinking in the first place. So you're building a muscle. All right. So what I hope you take away from this, and we went a little deep, is a few things. Inner voices are powerful, old, and distracting, but totally normal and very, very human. No matter how confident or smart or right they seem, they are not all knowing, and they don't tell the complete truth. All inner voices know is what they're afraid of. And you can diminish their impact and reclaim your sense of presence, and presence is the beginning of great leadership. So, thank you very much. Here's my stuff. Definitely connect with me. Pleasure seeing you.
A few minute buffer here. Does anyone have any?
Yeah. This one? This one, that's red. Yeah.
Okay.
So you were saying that oftentimes people make a face when they're in interviews or whatever.
Yeah.
I know when I'm having interviews and somebody asks me a question, oftentimes I'll have to think about it, and I'll do what I call my math face.
Yeah.
Kind of like look up for a sec and be like, okay, this is a question, and then I'll come up with an answer.
Right.
Would that be one of those? Would somebody perceive that as an inner voice distraction?
Yeah, I mean, I think potentially they would, right? Because, well, so let's just do it. So you just ask me a question. Ask me a question. What's the weather like today? Just ask me that.
What's your favorite color of tree?
So like, now in this case, it doesn't really matter what my favorite color of tree is. So you don't mind if I think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
But if in an interview scenario, if I'm evaluating whether you actually have an accurate and confident answer to the thing I just asked you, that little moment of hesitation, look, you don't lose the job because of it, but I register it as an uncertainty. And maybe it's something I come back to and kind of like poke on a little bit more later in the conversation. Nobody's perfect, right? So you're going to do this. But one thing that you can do instead of that is just practice not moving your face. And if it's hard, so the eye contact exercise, right, is like on purpose, right? Even in an interview, like when I'm staring at you, the reason why we do this, I looked this up once scientifically, the reason why we do that look away thing is literally that we're trying to preserve or reclaim cognitive energy to answer the question. And it takes energy for me to look at you. So if I'm looking at you, I have to look away to be like, okay, let me like start the engine about, what this answer is. So it's just a habit. And if you can look not at the person, but maybe at their name or at the corner of the window or something, you don't pull your energy out in the same way as if you're looking right at them. So that's just the thing you practice. You get better at it. Yeah.
Neurodivergents fit into all of this because a lot of times when neurodivergent people speak, they're often looking up at their thoughts and envisioning them. And it's also very hard for some neurodivergent people to read body language. And so how does all this play into that as well?
Well, I should say, first of all, that I am not an expert in neurodivergence, generally speaking. But what I would say is that, like so many other things in life, that's going to be harder for them than it would be for people who are neurotypical, right? So if I were talking to a friend who was asking me this question, I would say, you just need to work a little bit harder on it. Like it's something you need to practice for better or for worse. These are the sort of like rules of engagement out there. And there are small things that you can put into your own framework and your own way of thinking. And even if it's something like don't look in the eyes, but look in the corner. So through coaching, through practice, it's a person-to-person question, but it's definitely a challenge. Yeah, I think, thank you for pointing that out.
Are we allowed to ask you questions about your journey?
Sure.
All right. So you and I know each other, but you have definitely a long time spent doing UXy things.
Yeah.
How do you think that particular background, because it wasn't a background in marketing, wasn't a background in like MBA leadership, blah, 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 that traditional stuff.
Yeah.
How do you think that made you a better coach or a different kind of coach than your peers?
So the experiences that I've had and the teams that I've led and things that I've done professionally in my career, of course, gave me lots of opportunities to relate in different challenges, different contexts with lots of different types of people. So that was the sort of playing field that I had access to, which was great. But the way I would answer your question actually is what makes me better at this stuff is that I suffer from that stuff badly. And I always have. And so as I got more and more advanced in my career, got more coaching, thought more about it and did work on myself, I started to see what was really going on inside. And it made me uncomfortable. Like I wasn't happy at times when I should have been happier, right? Leading people or growing a company, whatever the case may be, because I was so burdened by these voices and these uncertainties. And so becoming a coach, and this is probably a different talk, but becoming a coach was really an outgrowth of a personal journey to really try to figure out how to make myself feel more myself, happier. So that's where I would locate, those sources. Thank you for asking.
How do you think about power dynamics with regard to your recommendation around diminishing language? I've found that as a leader in the past, and particularly dependent on company cultures, if I assert a perspective too often, sometimes people just fall in line. Mm-hmm. And that's not what I want. Yep. And so sometimes I will need to say things like, I've got a crazy idea. I need you to push back on it. Right. To try to elicit participation.
Right.
And I know that's a bit different if you're in not a position of authority.
Yeah, I think that what you just said is a great example. I have a crazy idea. I want you to push back on it. That's actually a very leaderly thing to say, because to even say that, you're standing in a place of authority and presence. You're saying like, "Hey, it's crazy, but you guys, you're going to help me with this, right?" So I didn't hear that as self-diminishing. And in fact, I would say as a leader, it's just as important for you to not use that self-diminishing, make yourself smaller language, because people really rely on you for some stability and solidity, right? And so I would say that there's a whole other challenge for leaders in that respect, in that they sometimes have to project confidence about things that they themselves may not actually be confident about, right? Oh, the company's going in the right direction. This product is going to really be great, and maybe not, right? So that's a different kind of challenge. But yeah, no, it's a great question.
Much higher than you are.
Yeah.
I have a project with my team. I'm not a leader of the team. I'm just part of the team.
Yeah.
And we have a project where we have to build a product for higher ups. For leadership.
Okay.
It's a dashboard. So we speak to this type of people, this level, and I was looking for an advice, and I would like to ask your advice.
Sure.
How can I learn this language better to communicate to leaders, to remove the clutter, to speak better and not waste their time and my team's time? And I see in our team that when they read emails from one particular executive, they see a lot of words about like they see this leader as if he's diminishing their skills, but it's not really true. What I see is that the person is trying to teach the team how to do things better, but maybe the language is not right.
Yeah.
So without pushing back, what would you suggest how to talk to this type of people who talk
You want to
down
talk
you,
to the
but
people who feel diminished by the language that the leader is using.
yes, I want to support the morale
Uh-huh.
of the team. And I see that this person is right, but the way they communicate is not always right. So without pushing on their ego, because the leaders, and without diminishing the team's morale,
Right.
how can we?
So let's try to, this is a little bit complicated, but let's try. So let's try to, no, it's good. Oh, you want to, yeah, you can do whatever you want. Yeah. But let's try to put it maybe in the context of some of the frameworks that I talked about, right? It sounds like that what's really going on is that you believe that the point that this leader is making is a valid point. Okay. So you think they're kind of right in the feedback that they're giving, but there's something about the way the message is delivered that is landing poorly for the team. Okay. So the question for the team is, okay, let's assume that this feedback is actually valuable, good feedback. What is it about the way that they're delivering this message that's hurting? And why is that what you're centering on? And you're not able to get through that into the actual substantive question of whether this is good and valid feedback. That's inner critical voices at work. Like, first of all, no one likes to be talked down to or demeaned, of course, and there may be an HR issue there that you have to grapple with. But if someone is just a little brusque, or they're kind of very direct, and or maybe they use a little language now and then that seems curt, the message is like, you need to figure out, your team need to figure out how to not be so brought down by that, like how to be able to focus on the content of the message, not necessarily the format or the style, and ask yourself, why does this activate that scared, worried voice? Reassure them that thing that voice of yours is afraid of is not happening. So you need to kind of like make up for that in a way, So that's off the top of my head, that's how I would handle it. Yeah, sure. Oh, one more, sorry. Okay, it's a good one. They're all good ones. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So here I would invoke you can reason with the voice question, because if you're really talking about a situation in which there's a layoff, but it has nothing to do with you personally, it was just the company shrank or whatever, they made some dumb decision and took out 30% of the workforce, like that has nothing to do with you. But of course you feel it so personally, and I've worked with lots of people who are in this position. So it just takes a little work. You got to look at the evidence. What's really going on here? Was this something that I did wrong? Well, this person over here who also got laid off, they're awesome. So if they're awesome and they got laid off, then maybe I'm awesome too. And that's not about that, right? And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a little reassurance. And there are other tactics also, right? Like as you sort of start to turn the ship and move in the new direction, whatever that ends up being for you, pay a lot of attention to where new evidence emerges. Oh, wow, that person thinks I'm really good. I had a great conversation with them. I got a second interview here. So highlight all of those positive signals saying, maybe that bad feeling I had about things before is not actually correct. And then over time and distance, hopefully those voices start to quiet down. I would say same thing. I mean, pivoting is like a little bit of like, I don't really deserve to be doing this new thing because I really am good at that, right? It's like, all right, well, why not you? You went and got a certification, you've learned, you have some experience. You have to be reasonable, right? You're not going to say, I'm going to jump into a VP role in this new thing that I've never done. Like, obviously that doesn't make sense. But saying like, I can go and represent myself as having the skills and the strengths and the qualities that match this job, sure you can. Why not? And so, again, it's good with conversation, a coach or a friend or a buddy or something to say, let's look at this for real with clear eyes. And then you just build up a better story. Yeah. Yeah, I'll hang out.
So
Yeah.
Nick will be around, so
Good.
ask him questions.
Thank you. Sure.
Hello? Oh, there we go. All right. Hope some folks are out there streaming as well. Yeah, welcome to the panel, Leading Through the Shift. With me, we have.
Hi, I'm Christina Goldschmidt. I'm the VP of Product Design at Warner Music Group and also an adjunct professor at NYU's Stern School of Business.
And
I'm Chris Hamilton. I work for JP Morgan Chase. My opinions are my own, and I'm not here representing the firm. Had to say that. I head up a product design team for our self-directed investing business. We essentially help customers invest with confidence. Chase.com, Chase mobile app.
All right. So here we go. Leading through the shift. Now, as you all are very, very aware, the last 18 months or so have introduced cataclysmic changes thanks to AI. You've also seen massive shifts that moved us away from those heady post-pandemic days when there was a veritable gold rush for talent across the board, right? And yeah, business cycles happen all the time. We've experienced them, we lived through them. But who would have ever expected that this one would happen so strongly and with such speed? Kind of has our heads spinning a little bit, and I see some nods. But let me ask you really quickly, how many of you here sit within a design function? How many of you sit within a product function? Okay, a few. And tech, engineering? Okay, so we got a little bit of a mix. So what we want to do is we want to talk about some of the changes. So for example, organizations become much leaner, right? They've also become flatter. Think about the market reality with hiring. We've already talked about layoffs. The hiring times are longer. How many of you experienced the recruiters where ghosting is the norm rather than the exception? Ooh, lots of nods there. And then, you know, there's just a lot of change around AI reworking and redesigning our workflows. So what we want to think about is not how this is really depressing, because it seems very depressing. But I think there's an opportunity whenever there is change, there's also an opportunity. So hopefully we can hit both sides of the coin in this conversation. So we're going to talk a little bit about leading through the shift, how to grow and adapt, as well as the skills that we've seen that are most required. All right. So are you guys ready? Yeah. All right. So let's start with a little bit of a warm-up pulse check. If you had to describe what work or leadership feels like right now in one word or phrase, what would it be?
Changing rapidly.
All right.
Adaptive acceleration.
I kind of think it's exciting. Call me crazy, but all right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about leading through the shift, okay? So according to Nielsen Norman Group, for example, they say that leadership expectations have shifted from evangelizing around design to continue to prove business impact continuously. Okay. Now that's one example of a change, but I'm wondering for you guys, what are the expectations that you've seen? Not necessarily because someone else has said, this is what they're expecting to see, but because of your own expectations of yourself and how you've needed to adapt. So my first question is, well, how has your role changed in the last 18 months? Or whatever time frame, 2 months, 3 years?
Sure. I think over the last few years, some things have shifted, right? Like that, heard some of you could talk about already. Like teams are leaner, flatter, maybe not hiring, or maybe hiring elsewhere, not around here, not these zip codes on this island. For example, but I still think a lot of things haven't changed. I think you mentioned this idea of showing value and impact. That's been a consistent thread for my team for a long time, is how do we add value? How do we understand the business? How do we tell those impact stories?
Christina?
About 2 years ago, I joined Warner, and my job was to actually grow that team. And recently we did have layoffs. And so now I sort of think about myself as recasting the team and actually helping the team to train themselves for what the future is in our new reality within our jobs, but also to future-proof themselves no matter what. So if they are either at our company or at a future company, so whatever I can do to inspire them to learn and to grow more so than I've actually ever done at any other place that I've ever worked.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. The sort of a casting director, coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Translator. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would only add a couple of things. I agree with that. With so many org changes, I think we had like 3 org changes in the space of 2 years. And there is a need to sort of translate or be the org translator in those respects, because you kind of experience as a team person, the knock-on effects of changing leadership and tensions or stalled projects without really knowing why, and just trying to help ground people and provide a sense of security around what's happening and the reasons behind it, because usually there's a really good intent, but it just doesn't feel very great. Yeah, yeah. Cool. So what about, let's take a positive take on this theme. What do you think? What opportunities do you see as a leader that have emerged out of this strange time?
Great question. No, go ahead.
I think that it also creates the vacuum for anyone who wants to step up. That there's sort of a convergence of roles. It almost feels like it's 1996 again, where everyone can do everything. And so that means that anyone can actually lead strategy. Anyone can show what we mean. And the phrase, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, a clickable working vibe coded demo is worth 1,000,000 words. Right. So that I think allows people on my team or engineers to actually say, this is what we are thinking, and to translate that to the business, to basically like bridge the communication gap and to make sure that everyone's on the same page so that we can all move forward together.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of like license for a new kind of creativity, no matter what your role is, right? You have an opportunity to invent, to rethink things, and that can be pretty exciting. What about you?
I agree. I think it's super exciting and kind of scary at the same time, right? Like you see some people adopt these new tools faster than others. One of the things I encourage my team to do, similar to Christina, is is try to be out ahead, try to be at the tip of the spear of what everybody else is doing. So you can kind of wrap your arms around it because that's what everybody's doing, right? Yeah, learn the tools, figure out how to find ways to reduce manual effort that you might have today in your workflows. And I imagine there's a lot of different opportunities out there to find ways just to tackle problems faster than you are now. Bring things to your team and to your partners before they become issues or escalations, and show how powerful these tools can be. Like learn out in front, like with people, so they can see how you're adopting them too. As much as I say this with my team, I still see some team members not adopting them as much as others. I think it's partially because we also have things that we're already very focused on and very busy with. And sometimes it's hard to find the space to do that and carve out the space. And one of the things we've done intentionally is give teams the space to do these things as part of their normal workflows and part of their normal sprint activities, that they're not going to get dinged in their velocity if they experiment and they try. And we want people to figure out what's not working well and make mistakes so we can figure out how to push through that.
Yeah, I love it. I also see opportunities in thinking beyond even one's org, which I find really interesting because, efficiencies are a big thing now. How do we reduce costs? Well, it's not just in a team. Often it's within an entire organization. And so we found ourselves thinking about how do you improve the operating model across the board, where you bring a little bit of design creativity into that and help drive change there. And so that's also, I think that's another opportunity of sort of like extending value into new places. So let's talk a little bit about growing and adapting as a team member. Yep, there's a lot of changes and expectations when it comes to leadership. When it comes to a team member who's experienced this on the day-to-day, chaos, new tools, all of that, what are the kinds of things that are going to be most helpful during this time? So my question to you is, from your perspective, what kind of mindsets and or behaviors separate the people who keep growing from those that are feeling stuck? Yeah,
sure. One of the things I try to always get my team focused on is driving outcomes, aligning with whatever those business metrics are that you're trying to drive. Figure out how to drive those. Don't just push pixels. Again, learn the business, and it helps to at least be able to have if you're fortunate enough to have a clear strategy and vision to align to, that really helps. If you don't have that, at least hopefully there's like a purpose that you have with your team that keeps you guys focused when there's a lot of other ambiguity around you.
Yeah, totally.
I think having a learning mindset, so being open to ideas from anywhere and improving your craft, whatever that is, but also thinking about innovation and strategy as primary tools that are always going to be things that we as humans produce and not necessarily AI produces. So I it's kind of like a dirty word in design circles, but I teach design thinking. and the word is not in vogue anymore, but the methods are still solid. And if you can teach people how to use the evolutions of their brains to come up with completely novel ideas that are not necessarily grounded in anything in the past, AI can't do that the way that a human can. And you can bring those novel ideas to solve business problems, to drive outcomes, to solve customer problems.
Yeah. I've experienced that tension around design thinking. It's a double-edged sword, but mostly a good one. Innovate. Yeah. Yeah, what I would add is this idea of empathy, speaking of design thinking. And I think now more than ever, having empathy for your partners, the people you work with, understanding what they're feeling, because connecting the dots here, right? We all have our inner voices. And change can be scary and uncomfortable. And if you start to think about what your partner in another discipline might be experiencing, I think that just leads to better collaboration and better relationships. And then the other thing I would add is I think in this moment, behavior is be proactive rather than sort of slouching in, holding back, find ways to step up and have the confidence to do that. And I think that would serve anyone well. Yeah. All right. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of this. We talked about mindsets and behaviors, but what about skills? What are you seeing in terms of the kinds of skills or aspects that help get people hired, that help them stand out, particularly at a time like this?
Being able to solve complex problems and being able to talk to it and to explain your methodology for doing so in a repeatable fashion. So practicing those behavioral interviewing skills, if you are actually out there going for a job, to say, this is how I solved it and this is how I approach it. And then also, I think actually 0 to 1 type experiences, and also 1 to 2 also are really helpful right now. One of the things that was really interesting for me when I was hiring at Warner, not right now, but a little while ago, was it was very difficult to find people who could actually invent a design system from scratch, who could think about completely new softwares and systems from scratch, and or didn't need all of those operational clutches in order to help them be great designers. And so I think going back to not just owning a component of an experience, but a holistic experience.
Yeah, that holistic experience piece, I think, is really, really becoming increasingly more important, not only because of the complexity of everything and the connectivity, but having that end-to-end thinking, holistic view. I would actually, just to pick up on what you're saying, I think is a really important skill and focus, being able to think of what, regardless of, honestly, your function. When you think of a service design lens and connecting not just the experience, but the people, the process, the technology, all the things that are interconnected that sit beneath that, I think is really, it's only becoming increasingly more important.
Oh, sure, yeah. The complex thinking there, yes, that was very well put. Yeah, the systems thinking there is still really important. There's a lot of things that I think are always going to be important. It's always going to be important to, build good relationships with your partners, to understand their perspectives, to understand their business. That's how you win trust. That's never going to change. Doing great work so you can build these partnerships and earn that trust, that's never going to change. So we've always looked for people that can do the job, that are also nice, that can build good relationships with people. But yeah, more and more it's becoming about these newfangled AI tools and how you can apply them. So we look for people that are inspired to try new things and are not afraid to run at these tools instead of run away from these tools. And I think that's a mindset, right? Like that's something that not everybody's up for all the time. Like this industry moves super fast. I think that's always been true. It's always been changing. That's how technology evolves. And so there are less fast-paced industries if that's not sort of the mindset and the skill set that feels right for you. You could work for the post office, for example. Maybe it's a little less fast-paced. I don't know. Maybe it is getting more fast-paced with AI. There's always more mail to deliver, for example. But also, we look for people that have ways that they've demonstrated value and impact. And again, not just pushing pixels. Like, how have they moved a metric? Is a really important thing that we look for. We also look for people that are multifaceted, people that can speak engineering or have some experience with engineering, not just a design background. It's always great when someone can speak research, code, and design all at the same time, and product, and talk about outcomes.
Yeah. So did I. What are you
Yeah.
thinking?
I think someone who can ask questions. Like, why are we doing this? What's the reason that we want to do this? What's it trying to solve? And I think that that's regardless of what role you're in on a project. Because if everyone understands that, not just like, this is my OKR and this is the goal I'm trying to achieve, but like the real fundamental reason why, and always making sure that everyone understands that at a basic level, and translating it, as you were saying earlier, that really helps people understand the core of how to solve a problem and maybe how to simplify that problem if you can ask those fundamental questions.
Yeah, I love that. Why behind it is so key. Going back to this increasing pressure around showing impact, right? It's not only establishing the right metrics, that's the starting place, but what I have spoken to a lot of people about is the gap in business acumen. And across the board. And I think it's really important that there's, it doesn't mean that you have to go off and get your, late night executive MBA. Some people have done that. I encourage it. But that you know enough to understand how the business operates, how it makes money, and what the work you're doing is contributing to. And also not see that as somehow stripping you of your craft or your creativity or whatever else. Those two things can coexist in a single person.
Absolutely. 100%. That is key. Yeah, because you got hired for some reason, right? And presumably it's to help grow a business or help people in some way. If that's why you're there, yeah, make that happen.
Yeah. All right. So I assume you all have a list now of what you're going to be doing after this. No. Well, listen, before we wrap up and open it up to questions, I have one more question for you two. With all this stuff that's going on, what are you hopeful for?
Sure.
All right.
I feel like designers are super well equipped for the future in this case. So I think it's not just designers, data people, engineering people, product people, researchers. It's really anybody's ballgame. If you can wrap your arms around these tools and think about what kind of outcomes you're trying to drive or how you're trying to help people, it's an exciting time to be in this space. Yeah, there's a quote, like, relatedly. Let's see if I can remember it. The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. So just get out there and do this.
Yes. Christina.
I love that. But I think what I'm most hopeful for is actually the rise of truly delightful and differentiated experiences and products. That I think if we can do things faster If we understand what common patterns are and AI can help us make that, that we can now invest more in the surprise, delight, and brand expression. And maybe it's the revenge of the visual designer. I don't know. But I think that we don't have to all have an app that looks the same as somebody else's app, but that we can spend time to drive differentiation, to delight our customers, and to do that in such a way that drives business value.
Yeah, I love that. But that's after going through the trough of really bad stuff, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I'll add by saying, on the people side, I'm hoping that this sort of disruption will also have a positive effect on core culture. I think it's so important because it's, roles are blurring. We're having to rethink things so that coming out of this chaos, we'll have better collaborative relationships. That's what I hope for.
Me too.
All right. I think that's now we can open up to some questions. Is it the group question or the? All right. All right. Come on, Nick. You can sit right here.
Yeah, you could, sure, why not? I don't know you really need it.
Let's try the mic one more time. Do I need this? I'm good. All right, let me try it without. I don't know. All right. So I have two questions.
Yeah, so it is a tool in order to showcase your thinking. And that's just what it is. And so before you would have created mocks in Figma, or you would have created a prototype now you can do all of that with AI. Or you can summarize something with AI. But it's up to you to actually and say what is so what. AI doesn't do that. And so as long as you are not relying on check everything that AI gives you, apply your voice to it. Right? Like
agree. I think it's a great time to be less experienced in your career. Is out now. What would you guys suggest? That's just one example. Okay. Figma Make is out now, for example. There's so many different tools. There's so many different flavors of things that you could play with and try, like Dev GPT, Klein, Cursor, Windsurf.
So one of the things that I would suggest. Sorry, this is so hard. One of the things that I would suggest is get a buddy. Like, don't make it all on your own. Try and get a friend and you say, I'm going to try this thing and I'm going to show you what I did. And I'm going to try this thing and I'm going to show you what I did. Like, it's just like learning anything. It's better if you do it with a friend, like that way you're not alone. You also can be like, this thing sucked and like have someone to like have that experience with. And because it's gonna be weird and it's gonna be hard. And so, and sometimes we need that human experience when we're just talking to a computer screen. So that I would be like, hey, let's go get beers and like, let's try this out and make it a little bit more fun than just trying to bang away at it. That's what I try and do, at least.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great point too. And just to add to that, like there's so many gimmicky things that you see people doing with these tools, right? But try to find a way to solve a problem that matters, like either to you or to people around you or to your community. Like get rid of manual workflows, for example, if you can.
Oh,
Everyone. My name is Andressa. First of all, thanks for being here tonight and thanks for sharing all your knowledge. My question is regarding the expectations that companies have, of course, like these days that their employees will go out there and learn more about AI and start applying these things inside the company. And I'm trying. I just want to hear from you if you have any thoughts on how can companies better evangelize or incentivize their employees to continue on this path, because we have to learn AI on top of everything else that we have to do on our day-to-day jobs. So yeah, wonder if you have thoughts or ideas. Thank you.
I can chime in with one thing, which is a little bit responsive to the prior question too. Companies are only going to incentivize or encourage or even really tolerate something that is proximately helping them achieve their goals. So you're going to find a lot of difficulty when you're talking about investing a significant amount of time, particularly away from your core responsibilities, envisioning how some new tool will be used, unless that's strictly your job to do that, which if it is, you're really lucky. But in terms of like where to focus, to the other question too, I think it's very important to be extremely clear about what your goals are, right? And whether you're talking about an internal mobility of some kind, or what your sort of reputation or what you're known for internally might be, or if you're trying to move into some new space, you have to understand to the best of your ability, what is the target state? What is the target position or role? What do you want to look like in terms of your profile and skill set to have some future that you're envisioning for yourself? And then you have to do a little research. So maybe you need to figure out, oh, the kind of work that I want to do, they all seem to be using this tool. Ask some people. The buddy is a great idea. Join some communities and just like throw it in a Slack. What's everybody using these days? But also not like what's cool and interesting and kind of slick, but what is being used internally at companies that seems to really be making a difference. Because I don't know if you all feel this, but I think that it's like a new tool every day, or a new hype about some new feature that's added. And then you go over and check it out and you're like, I don't really see that there. And maybe if I like made it my only job to go deep into figuring out how to use this thing, that I would find some value. But generally speaking, you know, there's a lot of sizzle and not that much steak out there still. So you got to figure out something that's going to really make a difference if you spend the time to learn it. Fine.
I would also just say, try to understand what's holding them back if you can. Like, just try to dig deeper and understand the problem a little better. Like, why isn't the workplace adopting these tools? Are they just not ready yet? Maybe you can help kind of nudge them into it. Or are there other sort of barriers that are keeping them from rolling these out across the company, or letting you guys try and experiment and see if you can streamline your workflows? Just as an example, the head of my company was speaking at a tech conference last week, and this is why I can say this. We've already spent $2 billion on AI internally, and it's not new. He also said, we've been doing this since 2012 in all kinds of ways, like machine learning, et cetera. It's not new. The new thing is Gen AI and agentic AI. And after $2 billion of investment, he said, we've already seen $2 billion of savings. So you just got to get out there and not be afraid to move into this space, because it's already changing so many things in so many great ways for our customers. It's, you know, use them for good. Figure out how to help people. Make jobs more fun. Get rid of those manual processes I talked about. Because seriously, those are some of the reasons why we hear anecdotal feedback all the time. I hate my job because of this manual process. And AI can help them. So we can do more fun things at work, do more strategic things at work, do more valuable things at work. Yeah.
So just a real quick thing on that. Also understand what they're trying to move and measure. So most likely your company does some kind of employee engagement survey and is trying to move something to that effect. If done right, you can turn learning into engagement programs. And so if you want to volunteer on the committee, that's either on the culture club or on the learning club or on the, you know, whatever club it is that they have deemed is the right club based on their findings, you can help seed this as an idea of group learning, group sharing, group experimentation as a means by which you can take over one of those already existing programs in order to turn what was previously not an AI learning day into an AI learning day.
It's a great idea. And if there is no club, start a club. Yeah. I'm serious. If there's a group internally at my company and it just organically happened, now there's like a meetup monthly globally, people playing with AI tools. It's awesome.
So I have another take. I acknowledge like the AI stuff is happening. Cloud is not just the name of your brother's old roommates, et cetera, et cetera. Gemini is not a program from NASA. But I would think another thing that people with our background can do is sort of look at the parts of the process that still are human led and really nail those. Like the agents will sort of write themselves eventually, but you know, they can't do an immersive experience. Like they can't do Sleep No More. They can't do, you know, the Squid Game experience, et cetera. And that's still something that we can help with because it's personas and experiences and wayfinding and all that stuff. So that would be another way to sort of like accommodate yourself, which is like, this will happen. I will know enough to be dangerous, but I will double my efforts on the stuff that it can't do because humans still need community. They still need human contact. COVID did a number on all kinds of people. We need to sort of re-knit those networks together. And that's something that UX people can absolutely nail. And that's something that we can maybe sort of decide to like double our efforts on and let some of the other stuff sort of be taken up with the engineers, but we can really focus on that stuff because it's still squishy.
Anything to, no? All right.
I'm not going to ask an AI question. Also, as a former news producer, I love how you're passing around the lav mic. I have a question first for the panelists and then for Nick to respond to. So panelists, as you are all senior leaders, how do you give thoughtful feedback to your ICs? And what's the best tactic that you use? And Nick, as probably many of us are here, are ICs, how do you receive that without your inner voice interpreting it as, I'm a terrible designer, I don't belong here, blah, blah, blah.
Just thoughtful feedback in general, not any particular kind of feedback.
It can just be like, you know, any type of like critical feedback.
Yeah, I would say it's always important to be empathetic and caring and kind to your team. You know, the context matters for whatever kind of feedback you're giving. So, you know, it's important to maybe reiterate that context and bring it up again if it needs to be kind of shared or reminded. But just be direct, I think, more than anything, and be clear about what it is you're trying to say and just work through it with the team member, whatever it is, but be nice about it. Most importantly, don't disempower your team because they're there to do the best work of their lives. And hopefully you can help them do that by empowering them. Just don't shut them down.
I think that like
Yeah, I think I'm going to add on to what you're saying. It's my job to understand the goals of every single person that works for me. And this was actually really hard when I was at Etsy and I had a team of over 92 people. But one of the things that made that possible was actually the odd process of constant calibration. So calibration and crit. And so I would hear about their performance and their goals from their managers, and I would see their work in crit. And so, and when you can know the people as real people, so going to actually have food with them, and then seeing their work through those different lenses, you actually get to know them, and then you know what their goals are. So then, just like what Ryan was saying, when you have feedback for them, it's because you're trying to help them be better. And so always keeping their goals in the back of your mind, not necessarily your goals or the company's goals, so that they can hear it and internalize it and know that you're there to support them and to hear them.
The one that I agree with everything that's been said. And thanks, Ryan. One thing I'd also add is I found that it also helps to, especially when it's difficult feedback, needs to be said because it will help them, but to also talk about why. So it's not just, hey, sharing this with you, but there's a thoughtfulness behind it that helps them see the importance of addressing something and what it will do in a helpful way.
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
So I just wanted to, yeah, part two.
Hello.
Love this question. And I think maybe, and if I ever do a future version of this presentation, I want to incorporate the feedback scenario because that is such a hot one in terms of what I was talking about there, because it is definitely going to activate your I'm at risk response. This is dangerous. What they're saying to me is fraught, scary, I'm unsafe, oh no. While at the same time, just for the reasons that everybody said here, it's critically important that you hear what's actually being said. So it's like a high stakes, you got to listen, but your voice doesn't want you to listen. So my answer is just go through those tools, basically. Like maybe it would be fun and interesting and useful to figure out what is the name of, or the character of the critical voice. Maybe it's like some little terrier that wants to like, jump out and bark whenever you hear someone telling you like, yeah, you didn't do this so well, right? And give that terrier a name and okay, figure out a way to say heel or sit in your mind while you're having those conversations. But most importantly, probably most powerfully, I think this is the point you guys were making too, is get behind that to what's really being said, because it's really important that you hear that. You hear the feedback because that's going to be what helps you get better, advance in your career, etc. So I would approach it just using those tactics and recognize that this is a situation where your inner voice is going to freak out, probably, especially if the feedback is a little bit negative.
Yeah, that's really good. Just to add to that, maybe to summarize, yeah, don't be defensive. Because we talk about it this way internally a lot, like whether it's good or bad, like all feedback is a gift. Like to some degree, we're all there to learn and grow. So take it to heart. Yeah. It might not be what you want to hear, but it might be really important because we all have blind spots. We all have ways to grow that we aren't, fully grown into yet.
This is a good one. This whole discussion. The other thing is seek feedback. Don't just wait for the moment to happen or the meeting or the career to, conversation. I mean, real time from people you work with, partners, whomever. And I don't think anyone would ever not be willing to respond.
Hello, how are you doing? Let me just say this has been a wonderful presentation and everything's very good. I'm a product designer. I identify myself as a social impact communication designer. I come from a field of social work, and then I turned to marketing, design, development, and recently I've also done machine learning. Okay, so I wanted to ask about basically, I love the point where you made social impact and volunteering in community groups, which is what I'm doing as well. I volunteer for diversity groups, mental health groups currently. And I love, so basically what I wanted to say is the Figma make, I recently just tried it not too long ago. I used it in my AI workflow. I recently created a and simple prototype that helps autistic children identify things they struggle with, because actually my wife works as an ABA therapist. It's something I wanted to help her. It was very simple app. So I'm like, I feel like AI creates a big opportunity, because just making that app would have made me, doing the research and everything, and then I have to do technical and prototyping as well. For me, I just had to do a research that took a few hours, and it did the prototype for me. The Figma Make did it. I have to make a simple changes. So yeah, I feel like AI is a very big opportunity, and like you can do a lot of things with AI. It's like you don't have to be scared of it adopting to your workflow. But my question for the panel is like, for me, someone like me who wants to be a industry voice. My aim is really big. Like, want to create like social clubs, social impact clubs that help a lot of people as much as I can, as much as we can. What do you advise for someone like me who wants to make a very big social impact change?
It sounds like you're already doing a lot of the right things. Okay, so keep doing what you're doing.
You?
Maybe, I don't know, there's just so much opportunity to do good out there. And it sounds like you've already found ways to do that. So what do you feel like is lacking for you right now? What are you missing?
For me, I'm actually someone who came from Asia not too long ago. I'm literally here jobless right now because I'm waiting for a work visa. Just looking at volunteering groups and nonprofits because that's all I'm allowed to do right now. I feel like I just lack the sense of culture because I've never worked in the Western market before, except for an AI company that I did machine learning for. But I want to grow as a product designer, not as an AI developer, because that was just something I just wanted to learn and build into my workflow. So I'm like, how do I level up my career as in a communicator of voice so I can actually lead and impact?
Yeah, I mean, really quickly, but there might be opportunities to look for ways to grow your skills in the areas where you're already working. Like who needs an app or a website or a web app or something that you could make with these tools and start to build up that skill set. Yeah.
I mean, what I'm picking up a little bit in what you're saying is that that you have a big vision. So you want to make a big impact. You want to be, I think you said, a leading voice.
Yes, definitely.
So I would buy Lillian's book. She's not here anymore, but that seems like a lot of what she's about. But I mean, all kidding aside, I mean, the building towards your ability to do that means getting out into the community, getting on LinkedIn, figuring out ways to understand what your message even is, right? Like if you want to be a big voice, that's great, but what is the voice saying, right? And it can't be a lot of different things, or I just want to do good is great, but it's sort of a broad message. So really honing in on some differentiation, and you can experiment and iterate, and then getting out there and trying it and finding like-minded people and trying to grow a discussion around that. What you're describing sounds like a career growth strategy, you know what I mean? Or like a career brand strategy, as Lillian said. So I would start there for sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. I actually agree. I was going to suggest Lillian's book too, but one of the things that is freeing you right now is that you can volunteer. And so that means that you're have this ability to choose who you want to work for and to choose the projects that you want to work for. And you're not doing it for the exchange of money so that you can actually promote yourself with it. So that actually gives you this opportunity to brand yourself because they need your help in that space. And I am no TikTok expert, but what the kids tell me is that there's actually a huge community there with parents who are struggling. And I think that if you actually start to produce content, not only on LinkedIn, but on TikTok, and get parents behind you and parents who are using the products that you're making that are helping their children, that could actually be a way for you to get the recognition that you're looking for. It's definitely one of the things that we do with artists in the music industry. So I think it could potentially work for you.
I would love to, if you're open to sharing this, I would love to hear how many designers you've hired in the past 2 or 3 years with 0 to 2 or 3 years of experience. So basically junior designers. And more importantly, what is your prediction as to what the market will look like what the team structures will look like in say 5 or 10 years time if we don't hire more junior designers? I'm not asking for advice, more of a macro view of the future.
So I have one designer on my team right now that fits that. And when I was at Etsy, I actually ran a internship program where we hired someone who was out of a boot camp program, and she is still there and thriving, and I think about to become an IC too. And so I worry deeply about the next generation, future generations, and who's going to be sitting up here if we're not actually hiring and growing from the beginning, and taking people from schools or wherever they're coming from. So I think it can be harder in today's current climate, but I also I was talking with Luke Stevens the other day, who's at CBS, and one of the things that's exciting for him is that the students coming out at 1 and 2s are actually really good with the AI tools. So he's hiring people from that cohort because they're able to move some of those things faster. So I think depending on where you're working, it's not happening everywhere, clearly, but there are pockets of places where people are hiring and growing the strategic capabilities of people who have the technical skills. But I do think that it's a problem. But if we can help them get access to impact, to complexity, and to strategy, then their technical skills can shine, and they could probably surpass people who are afraid of the technical.
I think that's really good, Christina. And I would just add to that, don't just limit yourself to design. Like if you can.
Yeah, I know what you are.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, but is design going to go away? Probably not. Design is here to stay. Design makes the world go. So design will look different, very likely, and how people's titles show up might be different. You might start to see more model designers, for example, like some companies have already hired. So look for businesses that you're passionate about or feel like can match up with your purpose, and see if you can kind of broaden the range of your skill set around those things, not just so focused on design. I would say that to anyone earlier in their career, or also anyone older than in their career too. I think especially younger people in their career are really well positioned to be the leaders of the future. Like when I talk to some parents of kids that are going into high school, for example, they don't know Google as a verb anymore. They use tools like ChatGPT more than Google. So it's going to be fun to see what happens.
All right. So we're at time, but we are at time. So I'm going to wrap this one up. But everyone, are you all hanging out for a little bit? Okay. Hang out. Everyone, there's still beer and wine and pizza. So hang out for a little bit. For the people who are on the stream, and I see some comments coming in, I'm really sorry that this wasn't better set up for you all. We'll do better at that next time. But thank you all. I think this was absolutely amazing. Hang out, talk to this crew. They're all incredible leaders, and I think we all can learn a lot from them. Thank you all for being here tonight. I hope this is a good one.
That was fun. That was fun.
That's yours? Yeah, not my personal one.
We've been up to years ago.
Of course we did.